Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rybrary. I'm your librarian. Hope you're doing well today. No talking in the Rybrary. So for the past couple months, when I've been doing this, I've been doing monthly recaps and TBRs for together in one video at the end of each month, and I like that. But I'm trying something different here, and recently I put out the TBR video for October, and today I'm going to be doing the recap part and recapping the 4 books that I read in September. The first book I completed in the month of September is Hungry Moon by Ramsey Campbell. This is a cosmic horror book by Ramsey Campbell, who's a big name in that field. This is one of his most well-known works. He's got a lot of novels, but this is maybe his most famous. This is the first full-length novel from him that I've read. I read a couple short stories from him in a couple collections, but this is the first novel, and I really liked it a lot. It was great. Maybe not quite as amazing as I was hoping, but it was really great, and I definitely want to read more Ramsey Campbell. This book marries together the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft and his ilk, and a kind of horror based in religious mania, a kind of religious mania that was kind of coming to prominence in the 1980s with the rise of evangelists like Jimmy Swaggart, Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, and Billy Graham. Most specifically, Ramsey Campbell was, I believe, inspired by Billy Graham when he created the charismatic preacher character in this. This takes place in a small town in England called Moonwell, which I believe is near Sussex. It's a mountain town with lots of moors, and it's called Moonwell because there's a giant vertical cave that descends deep into the earth that the town is adjacent to. The town is well known for having this midsummer festival that goes back to its pagan or the town's pagan origins and England's pagan origins, and has connections with the Druids. That's one really cool thing about this book is there's a lot of historical elements, with the Druids and with, ancient Rome. This charismatic kind of preacher arrives by the name of Mr. Mann, and he begins to kind of convert the people of the town from, just their mainstream Christian kind of life to, this much more intense fanatical form of Christianity. Mr. Mann is interested in kind of converting the people of Moonwell in part because of their association with this ancient midsummer festival, which he sees as pagan and evil. And so one by one you see the people of this town kind of fall under his sway and kind of become fanatical. Meanwhile, we as the audience are gradually become aware that there's some other kind of force that is driving the preacher, other than his belief in Christianity, and that there's other entities here and other things at work. This book is very much in the shadow of Stephen King. This is clearly Ramsey Campbell trying to take the kind of cosmic horror that he writes and to make it a kind of Stephen King-like book. It very much reminded me of Salem's Lot in that you have this small town and you see it gradually being corrupted, and you see that from multiple different perspectives. There's lots of different townspeople that this follows. Honestly, maybe a little too much. I think there's maybe like 8 different POVs in this, and I think it was maybe a little too much. You probably could have shaved off a couple of those and really still gotten the idea across, and left for some room for some other stuff. There was some really cool nightmarish stuff in here. There's lots of imagery and symbolism, with darkness and with moonlight and the kind of moonlight as like kind of a symbol of like a corrupted form of light, that people mistake for true light or something like that, and it all works very well. The entities that we encounter in this are very very creepy, very unsettling. I largely loved this. It had a very weak ending. That's like my main complaint with it. There is this kind of big climactic thing that it seems to be setting up throughout the whole book, and then it never really materializes. And I thought that was a big missed opportunity. Also, as I said, maybe a few too many characters, but that's, not a big deal. Yeah, I love this. Can't wait to read more Ramsey Campbell. It definitely makes sense to me why he has his place as one of the greats in the history of cosmic horror. The next book that I finished in the month of September is Trash Tales, edited by Criminali and Alex from Alex Unabridged. This is an anthology of short stories that just came out in August to coincide with Garb August, the reading event where people read trashy fiction. I will be doing a full-length review of this book. That'll be the next video that I make. But I figured I would just talk a little bit about it here. This was a great collection. I was pleasantly surprised at how solid it all was. There's very little in the way of like clunkers or, just crappy stories. Most of these are very, are amateur writers, I believe, without a ton of, published works. And so it was very impressive in that regard that just average people just kind of came up with these stories, with, like I said, most of which are very good. I don't know necessarily that I think the book achieved its goal in being a collection of trashy fiction, because most of these are just, legitimately good. While a few were campy and a few, kind of leaned into the exploitative violence or exploitative sexuality and that kind of thing. Most of these were just really solid and good short stories. So I'm not sure that it is actually an anthology of trash fiction, but I'm not, an expert on what that term really means and what, a collection of trash fiction should look like. And, saying that, this isn't actually trashy, this is just legitimately good stuff is not really a complaint that I can make. So it was on the whole great. And full disclosure, this was provided to me as an advanced reader copy by Alex and Ollie. Thank you, Alex and Ollie, again for that. I'll link to their channels here in the description. The third book that I finished in the month of September is Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Bright. I reviewed this on the channel already, so you can go check that out if you're interested in my more in-depth thoughts about it. But I liked this. This is a gothic sort of extreme horror kind of book from the 90s, and is about two serial killers, one from England who is a necrophiliac, and one from New Orleans who is a cannibal, and they meet and, sparks fly, so to speak. And it also follows a young man who is, a potential victim of theirs and his ex-boyfriend. This was really interesting to me as a gay man because it deals so well with gay themes and with what it was like to be a gay man in the 90s, when, AIDS was a big thing, and when, gay men were still largely ostracized and marginalized, and what that made of life, and how it made it more possible for gay men to be targets of these kinds of killers. We do also get a lot some great perspective into the minds of these two killers, and kind of the reasons they do what they do, and their perspectives, which is a little more complex than people might believe of serial killers, and this is reflected in reality. When you hear serial killers talk about their experiences and what it's like for them, it's often more complex than just they're raving maniacs. There's a lot of nuanced emotions and that kind of thing, and that's all very well expressed here. The prose is really great. I liked the characters. The story itself, as well as the ending, were kind of just whatever. They're not really in my mind, they're not really the central, focus. I do want to read more of Poppy Z. Bright's work because this impressed me in that it's like a fairly literary book, and literary stuff is always very hit or miss for me. So whenever I find an example of something like that that really works for me, it's intriguing, and I want to explore that author's work more. Finally, the fourth and final book that I read in the month of September is Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky, the second book in his trilogy, soon to be a tetralogy. I don't know if there's a name for it other than the Children of Time books. But yeah, it starts with Children of Time, then this is the second one, Children of Ruin. Then there's Children of Memory. I was absolutely enamored with Children of Time, the first book in the series. It was my favorite book of last year, and it just managed to hit so many of my buttons. It was very high concept while also having a lot of heart and being very, making me feel a lot. Children of Time is kind of about two different stories. One is a human generation ship that is fleeing a dying Earth and trying to find a terraformed world that was set up in the distant past that they are only vaguely aware of. And the other half of the story takes place on that terraformed world, where the terraforming has kind of gone awry and has created a race of advanced and intelligent spiders. And so you're following their whole evolutionary, path as spiders, and watching, the evolution of their culture and their civilization. I'm not going to really talk too much about what specifically happens in this because it goes off of that. But I did love this quite a bit. It's definitely going to be in my top 10. I did not like it quite as much as the original. I think that Tchaikovsky tries to step up his game and one-up himself a bit too much in this. There's a lot of stuff going on in this conceptually. There's a lot of new concepts introduced and new, factions and that kind of thing. Unlike Children of Time, it feels pretty exposition heavy. The first half of this is fairly slow because there's a lot of exposition and a lot of stuff being explained. Whereas the first book was primarily about humans and these advanced spiders, which are called portids. This introduces more kind of advanced races and more different kinds of intelligences that are very philosophically and scientifically interesting. And I loved all of that. It was all very interesting. I just think there was maybe too much of it, and it sort of feels abrupt in the way that it wraps up, I think, for that reason. I think that Tchaikovsky just bit off a little more than he could chew with this, and it feels a little less smooth as a result. I don't want to give you the impression that I didn't like this. I loved it. Actually, it's going to be in my top 10 books almost certainly. I particularly appreciated that he incorporated some horror elements in this, and it's really well executed. I was like, every time I think that, Adrian Tchaikovsky has shown me all that he has to show, he pops out with something else, and who knew he could, deliver some great horror scenes. Yeah, I mean, despite the flaws that I've kind of talked about, this definitely reaffirms for me that Tchaikovsky is one of the best in science fiction these days, and that he's one of my favorites of any genre writing these days. And those are the books that I read in the month of September. I'm currently knee deep in horror stuff for the month of October, of course. And you can go check out the TBR video that I released recently to see the books that I picked for my TBR for October, and I actually used dice in that to decide my TBR, which was a lot of fun. As I said, stay tuned for the full review of Trash Tales, which I'm looking forward to doing. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite stories in that collection, and I'll also probably post some ad hoc single book reviews, as I feel like it. I'm kind of noticing that that's how I like to do it. If something really, makes me think quite a bit and I have a lot to say about it, I'll usually just jump on and make a video about that. So we'll see, if any of these books that I picked bring that out in me. Thank you all again so much, as always, for visiting the Rybrary. Please like and subscribe if you like. Please comment, letting me know what you read in September and what you're reading in October. Thank you once again, and you now have my permission to talk.